everyone to Bravo 22 Live. Big shout out today then. Shout out to all our Bravo 22 members that joined us, all the people from the Royal British Legion that are joining us, and a massive big shout out to everyone in Poppy, Scotland. Thanks for joining us today. Also, those people that put in poems last week, which were all incredible, a big shout out to you. So that is Shirley, Kev, Matt, Graham and Baz. Thanks very much. Keep at it. Good work, good work. Right, for those all new visitors, my name is Tip Cullen. I'm a Bravo 22 member, a former Royal Marine, and I'm here as your host again, which is brilliant. Today we bring you part 2 of our Romeo and Juliet workshops. If you missed last week's, don't worry about it. Do not worry about it. If you go on your YouTube, you can see last week's and you can go through that. And again with this one, today's workshop, part 2, if you missed that, you can come back and visit it anytime if you need any top tips or you want to see my beautiful head again. Ooh. But, right, so the story so far, Romeo and Juliet, the clans, the families, they are still at rival clans and they're still at loggerheads. Now they're in preparation for the Capulet ball. Romeo and Juliet, they're going to the Capulet ball. They're preparing themselves separately, and this is possibly where they might meet as such. So what I want you to do, I want you to dance when you have to dance. I want you to fight when you have to fight. But most of all, just party and enjoy yourself. So let's see what's happening. Now I will just welcome once again the legend that is Kate Beales. Kate, welcome.
Yay, thank you, Tip. And hello, everybody. Lovely to know that you're all out there. Really looking forward to hearing from you as we go through this session. So, as Tip said, we're starting the story now in the moment where Romeo is preparing to gatecrash the Capulet party. Fortunately, it's masked, and that is how he can get away with it. Juliet, meanwhile, is being prepared by her father to meet a potential husband. Count Paris, handsome, rich, virtuous, and she's a good girl. She says, I'll look to like if looking like improve, and she will absolutely do her father's bidding. So the party is about to begin. And right at the top of the show, everybody needs, of course, to be masked. That's how Romeo's going to get away with arriving at the Capulet party, even though he's a Montague. Now, I had a go at making some masks. The first attempt, Alice Palmer said I looked like an elephant, so I'm not going to show you that. The second attempt, Sue said I looked far too scary, so I'm not going to show you that. The third attempt, well, Django says I look like a 1950s superhero, but I'm going to show you anyway. Here we are. This is what I did. I feel like a Blue Peter presenter making masks at home. And my challenge to you, thank you, Tip, for this week is go around the house, see what you can find. Could you make a mask suitable for the Capulet feast that could be worn to the Capulet feast? And if you could, please send a photo. Send it into Bravo and we'll be taking a look and we'll try and put them together in some kind of gallery. So, the party. Now, I don't know how you like your parties. If you like a great modern version of Shakespeare, check out the Baz Luhrmann version. That party is wild. If you prefer your Shakespeare classical, check out the Zeffirelli. That has got a beautiful scene, particularly the scene where Rosaline is dancing and Romeo is following her with his eyes and he's watching and she dances out of shot, and right behind her into shot comes Juliet. And Romeo sees Juliet for the first time and she's beautifully lit. Her face is lit up and he says, "Oh, she doth teach the torches to burn bright, for I ne'er saw true beauty till this night." And that's it. But before we get any further with the party, which is basically after that, an awful lot of time spent with Romeo trying to get Juliet's attention, you should listen to one more piece of music. Because so many beautiful and wonderful creative musicians have interpreted the Capulet party. One version is one that you may recognize. Now, this particular version, if you recognize it, great. If you knew that it was from the Dance of the Knights, the Capulet Ball by Prokofiev, let me say that correctly, by Prokofiev, let me know. I'd love to know who actually knew where this piece of music came from. Have a listen to this. thank you, Tip, for being my dance partner. Thank you, Tip. And Tip, it's lovely dancing with you. And I'm just curious to know, maybe send a message in the chat if you recognize that piece of music and if you knew that that was the dance of the Capulet Nights. So, meanwhile, Romeo and Juliet are at the party. Juliet's still looking for Paris, but Romeo's seen Juliet now and he is searching for a way to speak to her. He has to be careful. Remember, he's a gatecrasher. He's from the house of the Montagues. He shouldn't be there, but he can't bear it. So he finds a way to speak to Juliet. He finds a way, when she is busy talking to someone else, to grab her hand. And when she turns and sees him, she too is completely smitten. It is the classic, it's love at first sight. And they speak to each other, secretly, quietly, holding hands, trying not to draw attention to each other. And they spend the rest of the evening just talking, just getting to know each other a little bit, like you do at a party. Except there is trouble, because Tybalt, remember Tybalt? Tybalt Capulet, the most vicious, the most violent, the one who hates the Montagues more than anybody else, has spotted Romeo. And he knows who Romeo is. And Tybalt is about to go and confront Romeo. And in fact, he's completely ready to kill him because he thinks Romeo is shaming our party. How dare he come in here? But fortunately, he's intercepted by Lord Capulet, who says, what are you doing? And Tybalt says, but uncle, it's a shame. Look, this is a Montague. He's come here to sneer at our festivities. What are we doing? What are we going to do about it? And Lord Capulet says, nothing. Would you make a fuss and a scene among my guests? You will do nothing. And Tybalt says, but uncle, it is a shame. And Lord Capulet says, for shame yourself. How dare you? We will not have a fight here in my house. So Tybalt storms off, but now he has a score to settle. He's not going to forget. And the party continues. And Romeo and Juliet, uninterrupted by Tybalt, thankfully, spend the rest of the evening together until it's time for the party to end. And Juliet is called. She's called away by somebody we haven't really met yet, and that is her nurse. Now, not her nurse like in a hospital, but her wet nurse. That would be like her nanny, her childminder, the person who looks after her. Probably Juliet's nurse is the person that she's closest to in the world, closer than her own mother. And as the nurse takes Juliet away, Juliet says, nurse, who is that gentleman? And the nurse goes off to find out. And as they try to find out, so Romeo and Juliet discover each who the other is. Romeo grabs hold of the nurse, says, who is that girl? And she says, well, that is Juliet Capulet, the daughter of this house. And Romeo, is she a Capulet? Oh dear, Count, my life is my foe's debt. And when the nurse gets back, Juliet says, well, who was that person? And that person, she's playing casual. And that young man I mentioned. And the nurse says, his name is Romeo, and he's a Montague. Juliet is horrified. She says, my only love sprung from my only hate. I'm going to stop there for a moment and check in. Tip, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Obviously, everyone's massively impressed with our dancing, which doesn't surprise me in the least. So there's a big shout out to everyone saying we like the dancing, which is great. I have to do a quick shout out here to Sarah Howarth, David Hall, Lorraine Smith, and Luke Delahunty have all joined us. Baz is asking, is the music from Mastermind? I don't think it is, but
I'll tell you what. Good guess, really good guess. And yes, it is from a famous TV show. And I'm going to leave that for somebody else to answer. Let's leave that one hanging and see if anyone else recognizes it. But it sounds as though you might recognize it, Baz, from somewhere. And you were right to think it's on TV.
And I've got a question from Kate. And she's asked, probably from our last workshop, is when did the boys stop playing the female roles?
Oh, great question. Actually, I know the exact date, I believe, that the first professional actress walked on stage in England, and that was December the 8th, 1660. The actress's name was Anne Marshall, and I believe she played Desdemona in Othello.
Look at that, gobsmacking. I've learned something new today. So that's it, let's carry on, Kate. And again, there may be another male playing a female later on.
Yay, thank you, Tip. So the party's over. What does that mean to Romeo and to Juliet? They're never going to be able to see each other again. Romeo can't exactly call up and invite her out. Juliet is scheduled to marry Paris. It's going to happen. Her father has already arranged it. What are they going to do? So Romeo leaves the party with his friends, remember Mercutio and Benvolio, but he can't bear to leave. So instead of actually leaving, he slips away from his friends. He climbs over the garden wall back into the Capulets' garden. Now remember, for a Montague to be found in the Capulets' garden, that is pretty much risking death. He would be killed if he was found there. But he creeps through the garden and he sees a light in one of the windows. And he looks up and he will see what you see, which is the beautiful Juliet on her balcony, her cheek resting on her hand. And I just like everyone to imagine, you see Juliet here? Can everyone see Juliet posing here so beautifully? Just imagine you are Romeo and you're going to reach out to Juliet. I'm going to say the lines to Juliet and you say them after me, okay? But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. It is my lady, oh, it is my love. And he listens and he can hear Juliet speaking. And she says,
Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo?
Probably one of the most famous lines in Shakespeare. Thank you, Juliet, for doing that so beautifully. And in case anyone was wondering, she's not saying, where are you? Wherefore actually means why. So what she's saying is, oh, why do you have to be called Romeo Montague? Why can't you be somebody else? And that's why she goes on to say another quite famous line, which is, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Who cares what we call things? Let's not call him Romeo anymore. And Romeo has been listening. And of course, he realizes from these words that she is as in love with him as he with her. And so he dares to speak out. And that's when they have the glorious, famous balcony scene in which they express their love for each other. Probably because she would have been a boy actor back then. That's probably why she's up on a balcony and he's down on the floor looking up. And at the end of that scene, they agree that they can't live without each other and that they're going to have to find a way to marry. And Juliet is going to enlist the help of the nurse to take a secret message to the friar, Friar Lawrence. He lives outside the city. He's not aligned to either of the families. He knows everybody. And they are going to go to the friar and beg him to marry the two of them. And guess what? The friar, you might think, why on earth would Friar Lawrence agree to marry a Montague and a Capulet secretly against the wishes of their families? And Friar Lawrence does think it over for a while. And in the end, he thinks, maybe if we do this, just maybe, it will force these two households to get over themselves, to give up their feud, and to finally bring peace back to Verona. I'm going to stop there for a moment with all these plans afoot and just check in with Tip. Thank you for playing Juliet so beautifully, Tip.
I think I was made for the role. You know what I mean? I think it's me. You know what I mean? I've got to just get on my agent and get that one sorted for me. One from Shelley Rimmer. She asks, is it from the music? Is it from The Apprentice?
You got it. Yeah, it's from The Apprentice. Yes.
And another one, you being the guru that you are, I think you will love this one, is from Sue. What is the iambic pentameter?
Oh, Sue, how long have you got? What a brilliant question. I could do a whole session on this. I think it's so wonderful. The iambic pentameter is the verse form that Shakespeare writes in when he writes in poetry. And it's actually a lovely lilting rhythm of one soft followed by one strong beat in groups of 5. So if you listen to this, but soft what light through yonder window breaks. It's actually set up in 5 iambs, which is a badum, a little beat followed by a strong beat. 5 in a row makes it pentametrical, but soft, that's a dadum, what light through yonder window breaks. It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, their sun, and kill the envious moon, and so on and so on and so on. If you look through Shakespeare, he messes around with the rhythm quite a lot, but that badum, badum, badum heartbeat rhythm is how the play is arranged when he's writing in verse.
And can that go whatever accent, whatever language?
Absolutely. Well, it certainly will go with whatever accent. Some languages lend themselves very naturally to iambic pentameter, and English is one. We speak very naturally in iambic rhythms, actually. We don't speak pentametrically. We don't stop at the end of 5 and then start again, but we do speak very comfortably. So if I said to you, Tip, I don't know, let me think. If I said, I'd like to have a lovely cup of tea, that's actually a line of iambic pentameter. And if you replied, okay, I'll go and put the kettle on, that's also a line of iambic pentameter.
Yeah, seen it, and it's logical, and it sits well with all what we believe. There's a lot of points coming in about how beautiful Juliet is, and how Romeo's voice seems to be deeper, which I really don't know where that's coming from. Yeah. And Lorraine likes Friar Lawrence, and she was just asking, Kate, can you tell us more about who he is?
Yeah, Friar Lawrence, he lives in the story, it's called a cell, which is like his little, monastic home outside, a little bit outside the center. And he's famous in the story for being a herbalist. That's going to be important later. He gathers herbs, he makes potions and remedies. He's often up really early in the morning gathering fresh herbs. And he's also been Romeo's mentor in the story. He was a little suspicious of Romeo's crush on Rosaline at the beginning, I have to say. He was a bit doubtful that that was true love. But now that Romeo says, nah, forget Rosaline. At first, Friar Lawrence is like, wait, what? You totally were in love with her? Now you're in love with someone else? But now he's thinking, this could be really good. It could be useful politically to bring this couple together. I am going to go with this.
See, it's all politics, all politics. Right, Kate, let's get into the story again.
Whoa, okay, because meanwhile, of course, while Romeo and Juliet are off with Friar Lawrence and the nurse is helping them to organise a wedding in secret, remember there's somebody who's still looking for Romeo, and that is Tybalt Capulet. Tybalt still has a score to settle, and he is wandering around the streets of Verona, waiting to see when he's going to run into Romeo. But before he runs into Romeo, he also runs into Mercutio and Benvolio. Now, Mercutio and Benvolio, remember after the party, they lost touch with Romeo. They didn't know where he went. He slipped off back into Juliet's garden. And they're kind of a bit fed up with him, honestly. They don't know where he went. They don't know what happened. Maybe they're a bit hungover as well. So when they run into Tybalt in the square, they're not best pleased. And Tybalt sees Mercutio, and the first thing he says is, Mercutio, you consort with Romeo. Now, a consort is a kind of musical ensemble. And to tell an aristocrat who's related to the prince, like Mercutio, that he's a musician, that would have been considered a serious insult. So Mercutio says, what, consort? Would you make minstrels of us? What are you talking about? And Tybalt says, where is Romeo? And of course, Mercutio is like, well, we don't know either. We want to find Romeo as well. But he knows that he doesn't want Tybalt to find Romeo. But just at that moment, Tybalt looks over Mercutio's shoulder and says, don't worry, here comes my man. He sees Romeo and he walks up to him and he says, Romeo, thou art a villain. Now remember, this is Romeo who's just come from marrying Tybalt's cousin. He can't say, it's too soon to let the secret out, but at the same time, he definitely can't have a fight with Tybalt, right? So he says, Tybalt, villain am I none, but I love thee better than thou canst devise. I love you more than you can guess. And Tybalt's like, you what? You love me? You have to be kidding me. And Romeo's like, Tybalt, I'm not going to fight with you. Now at this moment, Mercutio can't bear it any longer. So he steps in and Tip is ready.
O calm, dishonourable, vile submission. Tybalt, you rat catcher, will you walk?
And Mercutio and Tybalt start to fight. Ah! 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 And the fight is raging and Romeo cannot bear it. Romeo can't see his best friend Mercutio fighting with his new cousin by marriage, Tybalt. So Romeo steps in and grabs Mercutio around his waist. And just as he does so, Mercutio is trapped. Tybalt follows through and stabs Mercutio in the heart. And Mercutio sinks to the ground. And he says, I'm dead. A plague on both your houses. And Benvolio rushes to grab him and says, Romeo, Romeo, the brave Mercutio is slain. And in that moment, of course, all reason disappears. Romeo sees Tybalt again, and he sees red, and he turns and he is onto Tybalt, and within seconds, he's killed him. And of course, the chaos and the scene and the killing has brought people to the square. Everyone is rushing into the square. With them, the Capulet's household, the Montague household, everybody is there, and the prince. The prince is looking down. Remember, Mercutio is his cousin. And everybody is saying, please, please, the Capulets are all saying, Romeo slew Tybalt. Romeo must not live. The Montagues are saying, wait, no, all that Romeo did was avenge Mercutio's death. Everybody is begging the prince for some kind of an answer. Please either kill Romeo or save Romeo, depending which side you're on. Everyone is begging. And the prince is like, silence, stop it. He has to think. Romeo was avenging the death of Mercutio. He's the only person who could do it. So he had to kill Tybalt. But he also committed a murder in the city. And the prince says, I decree that Romeo is banished. He must leave now, and if he is ever seen here in this city again, he will pay for it with his life. And that is where we're going to end the story this week. I'm going to pass over to Tip.
Okay, a few final questions. There is a statement here, which I truly understand anyway. It just says, Kate is a genius. And we understand that.
Shakespeare, I didn't write it. It was Shakespeare.
Couple of last questions. I think one's a reminder. I think we got this one last week, but it's worth just reminding people. How old are Romeo and Juliet supposed to be at this time?
Yeah, wow, it's a great question. In the scene where Lord Capulet's talking to Juliet about getting married to Paris, he says that younger than her, about 14 years old, are happy mothers made. So girls of 13, 14 are having children. And Lady Capulet, Juliet's mother, says that she was 14 when she got married to Juliet's father. So Juliet's about 14.
And that's the norm
For an aristocratic family. It wouldn't necessarily be the case for non-aristocrats, but for aristocratic families who were always trying to kind of enhance their wealth by marrying into other good families, absolutely that would have been normal. And
one for you as well is, why base Romeo and Juliet in Italy?
Great question. Partly because, I've got three reasons. Partly because in Shakespeare's day in England, there was a perception that the Italians, the kind of Latin, hot-blooded characters, were the ones who were really into fighting and revenge and romance. So an Italian nature would be really suitable for this story, partly because Shakespeare was also drawing on sources of stories. And one of the sources for Romeo and Juliet is an Italian story. And partly because also Shakespeare loved the Italian theatre form of commedia dell'arte. And that's something that he was copying and using archetypes from a lot. I don't know if anyone saw the National Theatre's production of One Man, Two Governors, which was on last Thursday. They streamed it live. And Tip saw it. Yeah, well, that was originally a commedia dell'arte story by Carlo Goldoni. And that story uses a lot of the archetypes of, it's an improvised art form, and it's super fun. And Shakespeare loved it.
And just want to, this is probably a good opportune moment. Who does the mysterious arm belong to?
The mysterious arm, can the mysterious arm just wave? Just the arm can wave, there we go. The mysterious arm belongs to Django. He's my son. And just a shout out for Django because he's working this morning helping me by being an arm. And it's his 21st birthday today.
Hey, happy 21st, Django!
His parents on his 21st birthday.
And obviously we've made an impact because Dave Hall says, no, we like Mercutio. So I'm like going,
thank you, David. Big shout out to you.
Romeo and Juliet, we can't change that too much, can we?
Thank you.
Right, so is that good to go? Have you got any more points or any bits and pieces for us, Kate?
Only that, of course, we've left the story on a bit of a cliffhanger. And I will let you know this time next week what happens to Romeo and Juliet. In the meantime, we've put some links up if you want to see more. If you want to watch the party scene, it depends if you like your Shakespeare modern or classical, but follow the links onto YouTube and you'll be able to watch a bit more.
Well, brilliant. Again, thank you so much for an absolutely incredible day. I truly love it, and I can't wait to our next session because it is such an incredible story anyway. So thank you very much. And again, masks, it's here. I've got it. Make sure we get our masks, get our FOTs in, and we'll get them showed as well. But thank you very much again for everyone. Massive big round of applause again for Kate Beales. Thank you. Woo.
Everybody, see you next week.
Next week. Right then, just to finish off for ourselves, remember your masks. Get your masks, get them sorted if you want. Fashion them. Blue Peter. We all remember Blue Peter. It's just magical. Double-sided sticky tape. Get it sorted. Get your mask. Get the FOTs. I know, Matt Whiteman, you can take your respirator off now, by the way. But moving on from that then. So next week, the next or the third part for this Romeo and Juliet workshops will be next Tuesday. So next Tuesday, 11 to 11:30 for part 3. This Thursday is our first art workshop, and this will be with Al Johnson. Timing's the same, 11 to 11:30. So thank you so much for everyone coming today. It's been an incredible second program for us, and I've really, really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys all have as well. So take care. Stay safe, and we'll see you all soon.